We're here at the University of Arizona, way out in the Wild West. This area, Southwest, is home to all kinds of wildlife, from elk to javelina to rabbits to coyote, deer, Gila monsters, rattlesnakes, roadrunners, and turtles. This area used to be home to one more species, the Mexican Gray Wolf. These majestic creatures used to roam all the way from Mexico City up into Kansas. Because of fur hunters of the 1870s, ranchers fearing for their cattle, and an aggressive 1914 U.S. government policy aimed at wiping out large predators, wolves were all but wiped out by the mid-1900s. In 1973, the Environmental Species Act made it official government policy to not wipe out endangered species on purpose. In fact, now the government had to preserve the animals they had once been poisoning only a few decades before. In 1998, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service began their program to reintroduce the Mexican Gray Wolf to the Southwest. Now, there are 163 wolves in the wild. Right now, the wolves lived in these two striped areas. There's actually one more place in the U.S. where you can spot a Mexican Gray Wolf. The 164th wolf, right here on the UA campus. Let's take a look. Ah, there she is, Cachorra, the great gray wolf of Tucson. She's not part of the reintroduction. No, she's descended from the legendary wolf Lobo, king of Currumpaw, and his mate, the mighty Blanca. Those two wolves terrorized the countryside for years, until finally they caught Blanca. They cut off her paw and made fake tracks to lure the lovesick Lobo into a trap, where he finally died of a broken heart. Little did they know, those New Mexico wolves had a pup, and that pup migrated all the way to Arizona, where she settled at the University of Arizona. Now, among the select few residents who know about Cachorra, there's an intense debate. Some think it's not safe to have a wolf so close to humans and their animals. Cachorra has been known to eat the occasional pet dog. Others claim that she's one of only 164 Mexican gray wolves, and that makes her worth protecting. They say that because humans killed all of the other wolves, her ancestors, it's our duty to keep the rest of the wolves alive. This mirrors a similar debate all over the Southwest between ranchers who worry about lost cattle and human lives, and environmentalists who worry about lost wolves. The ranchers' concerns are certainly valid. Just looking at Cachorra, we can see how her 2.5-foot tall, 80 pounds, and fangs are a real menace. But surprisingly, they aren't really a menace to humans. 36% of people who opposed reintroducing the wolf to the Southwest cited the threat to human lives. But despite how scary she and the other Mexican gray wolves look, they're very unlikely to attack us. Cachorra has survived so long by staying away from humans, and that's good for everyone. The reintroduced wolves similarly avoid us. They are chosen specifically for reintroduction because they demonstrate a fear of humans. In fact, there are no documented accounts of a Mexican gray wolf attacking a human, ever. Cachorra and her reintroduced cousins are really no threat to human lives. Alright, but what about cattle? Here the issue gets a little more tricky. Let's break down some numbers. We will be using stats from the 2011 USDA report on cattle losses. Out of the 3.99 million cattle deaths in 2011, only 5.5% of those were caused by predators, any type of predators. 5.5%. And that's only 220,000 losses. And of those predator losses, of that 5%, only 3.7% of those were from wolves. So 3.7% of 5.5% is only 0.2% of cattle deaths caused by wolves. And that is only 8,100 cattle. And that's for the entire US. In Arizona and New Mexico, the two states facing the Mexican gray wolf reintroduction, only 14,200 cattle were lost to any kind of predator. So that makes it seem like the ranchers have a pretty weak case. But that might not be the whole picture. A lot of ranchers express frustration with how difficult it is to prove that a killing was perpetrated by a wolf and not a different predator. Usually a rancher isn't just sitting there watching as his calves are torn apart. For all the adult cattle killed by predators in New Mexico, we don't know what kind of animal killed 21.9% of those cows. And in Arizona, that number is 74.7%. Wolf killings very well could be a lot higher than environmentalists claim. On top of that, even when a rancher can prove that a wolf killed his cattle, they're barely compensated. Defenders of Wildlife, a non-government affiliated conservation organization, used to reimburse ranchers for cattle lost to wolves, but the bill got so high that they had to stop. And remember what we said about wolves shying away from humans? Well, that might not even be true anymore. Reintroduced wolves are constantly being tracked by the government for routine examinations, and for the most part that's a good thing. It means that the wolves are vaccinated against infectious diseases like rabies. However, so much trapping has made them accustomed to traps, and they can more easily avoid them, and the government's attempts to move them out of human habitation and ranches. How much longer until they get accustomed to humans as well? Environmentalists will still argue that the wolf's importance to the environment outweighs this possible danger. There are very few studies yet on the Mexican Gray Wolf's importance to Southwest ecosystems, but we can look to other examples of apex predators returning. When otters were reintroduced to marine environments, they ate the urchins that had been propagating unimpeded. Then the urchin's food, kelp, could return, along with all of the wildlife that call kelp forests home. In eastern forests, the elimination of apex predators has caused an overpopulation of deer. The deer eat so much now that many native tree and wildlife species are going extinct. And when wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone, much of their plant life returned. It seems as though apex predators, like Cachorra, can actually protect plant and animal life lower on the food chain. So how can we reconcile the wolf's benefits to the environment with the threat to one of the Southwest's most important industries? The best way might be a combination of ranching and government practices to reduce the risk of wolves attacking livestock. For starters, ranchers could stop shooting wolves. When a rancher kills a wolf, they risk killing a pack leader. If this happens, the pack will likely split up, making hunting more difficult, especially for lone wolves. These lone wolves are more likely to attack the easiest prey, livestock. Next, the government could more comprehensively remove livestock roadkill. Wolves quickly get accustomed to food types, and since they're scavengers, the more cow roadkill they eat, the more likely they are to seek out cows for their next meal. On top of this, ranchers could remove dead livestock from their own grazing fields more quickly to reduce scavenging. Third, scientists could time new wolf releases to correspond with elk or deer calving season. As we mentioned, reintroduced wolves build a habit of what they kill pretty much immediately. So, if the wolf is released when elk are calving in an area with elk, they will build the habit of killing elk. And if you release wolves in an area with mostly deer outside of deer calving season, they will eat livestock. But if you release them during a species calving season, they will eat that large game. The wolves will continue this dietary habit long after the first season. The government and ranches could also work together to employ range riders. Range riders track wolf movements through the wolves' GPS collars and use this data to rotate cattle throughout fields and move them away from the incoming packs. In addition, there are various scare techniques ranchers can use to deter wolves. Guard dogs, for example. Flattery is another popular way. These are simple red flags tied to fences. They're even more effective when paired with an electric fence. The movement of the flags, as well as their novelty, make the wolves wary. These are especially useful then for a short period of time, like during calving, so that the wolves don't get too accustomed. You can easily use flattery in Tucson to protect your dorm or yard from Cachorra. All you'll need is string, scissors, and some thick red fabric, preferably nylon. All you gotta do is poke 2 holes in the top of your fabric strip, take a string of yarn, tie it in the holes, do the same for the other side, and there you go. You have one flattery. Repeat this to make even more. Take your string of yarn, cut it extra long, and tie your flattery through the holes onto the string. This style of flattery is ideal for increasing movement in the wind because it allows it to flap around. And voila, you have flattery. You can hang your flattery around your fence, on your dorm window, or near entrances. This is an easy way to protect your animals from predator attacks. And there you have it, 5 ways to keep your livestock safe from the Mexican Gray Wolf. It might be hard for ranchers and environmentalists to coexist peacefully, but if cows and wolves can do it, so can they. And remember folks, next time you're headed to class, remember to keep an eye out for Cachorra, the 164th wolf.